This is a story called Escaping the Madman's Hellish Dungeon. This is a true story and a story of an evil uncle's legacy. This was brought to head many years ago. And the story starts. I never met him, but when I was a teenager, my mother told me that he'd committed suicide, and that was that. My father, who was his brother, died from cancer when I was only 3, and there were no other living relatives. Dad was the only one in my uncle's will, which left his house of horrors that was then passed over to my mother. Uncle Arthur's House of Horrors was called as such due to the horrifying murders he conducted before he died. He knew that the police were closing in when many young women went missing over a period of 15 years. After his death, the investigation and the cleanup was horrific. Mom finally decided what to do with the property. By the time I was 21, there was a total refurbishment, and then she rented it out to several people. When I reached 30 years of age, I took over the dealings and had to answer many complaints about the building. The renters said they heard screams and saw ghastly ghosts floating around. I never believed in ghost stories and was a little annoyed with having to check the property at all the times of the night. At this stage, Mom was quite ill herself, so I often went to the building alone, armed with a flashlight and my pistol. One night, at the beginning of autumn, I received yet another call from a new tenant who said she heard screams. Tired of the complaints, I felt that they were just knee-jerk reactions to rumors and stories about the murders that happened at that house. I refused the suggestion to bring a priest or a medium in to perform a cleansing, so I went in to investigate myself. This time I decided to spend more time in the building, especially in the basement where no one liked to go. I told the woman to stay somewhere else for the night so I could check the premises without any hindrance. Beginning with the second floor, I swept through each room and did my best to keep my eyes peeled. I also kept my ears open and did hear many sounds, all of which I assumed could easily be explained using reason. When I heard the occasional moan, I blamed it on the plumbing and shifting of the old framework. At times, I felt a blast of cold wind and assumed that I needed to get the drafts and air conditioning checked. When I went to the first floor, I heard noises which sounded like screams, but I thought they were cats fighting. As I got to the top of the stairs, which led down to the basement, I heard a distant gruntal growl from below. I have to admit, it did freak me out a little, but I'm convinced, and I convinced myself, that it's probably creaking pipes or even the door. Switching the lights on, I noticed a strong odor of blood hitting my nostrils, but passed it off as rusty metal. When I walked down the stairs, I heard shuffling footsteps, which made me wonder if squatters were there. I called out angrily, "Who's down there?" But no one answered, so I kept moving to the bottom of the stairs. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up when a blood-curdling scream came from the far end of the basement. I turned my flashlight on due to the fact that the lights didn't illuminate the whole area, but couldn't see anything. What made my flesh crawl was the growling sound of weeping and pleas for help. I couldn't explain them away. I kept yelling, "Who's there?" But all I heard was crying and shuffling and occasional screams. Then I sensed a dark presence behind me, growling and chuckling. I spun around, nearly fainted when I saw that the basement was cluttered, filthy, like I was in another house. The screams were louder now as the lights flickered and the growling presence loomed large in the background. I walked past a large wall of boxes and crates to see a scene that might as well have been straight from horror films. 3 young women were hanging from hooks in the ceiling, secured by their wrists and naked and dripping with blood. 2 of them seemed to be either dead or unconscious, while the younger blonde woman kicked and screamed. Her blood soaked her gag, and her gag had dropped to her neck, and I saw several deep cuts in her chest, abdomen, still bleeding. Shaking uncontrollably, I blinked many times, trying to convince myself that I was dreaming, but it was all too real. When I saw the scene behind the row of hanging women, there was a long steel table was being prepared by a big man. I didn't realize that I was still creeping towards the table as the man fiddled in shackles at each of the corners. He wore black with the hood over his head, muttering and chuckling as he pulled out a hammer. I suddenly bumped into the table in shock, then screamed as he turned to face me. It was my Uncle Arthur. He gave me a vicious smile and soon morphed into a scroll as he crackled loudly like a maniac and pointed at me. He yelled, "On the table now, little piggy!" I turned to run, but smacked into one of the hanging women. I felt the blood trickling down my face as I continued to scream while my uncle's strong hands grabbed me by my shoulders. In a split second, he dragged me back and slammed me onto the table and then quickly shackled my ankles and wrists. He wrenched the flashlight from my hand and smashed it down on my forehead. I saw stars for quite a while. I felt blood trickle into my eyes as many screams filled my ears, along with a howling coming from my uncle. It was like he thought he was an animal howling at the moon while he slammed the hammer all along the table. I felt the table shake as he continued to bring the hammer down between my legs, other parts of the table also. I couldn't believe it when I started to scream and plead, "Uncle Arthur, it's me. Please don't hurt me." He was muttering again, saying incoherent things as he rummaged through the drawers of his workbench. He turned around and a saw was in his hand, looking at me in a dazed, furious way. I thought I was going to die. There seemed to be hundreds of women screaming now as he brought the saw down roughly onto my neck. I could see his black-rimmed eyes as he leered at me, dribbling through rotten, nasty teeth, growling like a beast. When the saw started tearing my flesh, I screamed for the last time and passed out, with blood and tears mingling. It seemed like eons before I woke up, flat on my back on the floor of the basement, which was now back to normal. I sat up and wondered if it was all a dream, but nothing stopped me from convincing my mom to sell the property from that day. So be careful what houses you buy, folks. You never know. Thanks everybody for watching my video. Please thumbs me up and please share me out. If y'all can do me a really big favor and make my videos go viral, share me at every media that you have. I really need the help right now. I know many of you can't donate, you can't afford to, and that's okay, you know. But you could help me by sharing me out on your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook, your community wall. Please help me by making me go viral and helping me grow as fast as possible. I need every cent that I can get right now. I'm going through a really bad time right now. So God bless you and thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. And please comment below. I love you all.